Hello there, poetry aficionados. I am thrilled to help us get National Poetry Month started. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite poems and poets ever. So let me start by asking you this. Who do you think is the most important writer in the history of the English language? I can already hear you now. It's Shakespeare, Miss O. He wrote Hamlet. He wrote sonnets, Romeo and Juliet. Easiest question ever. It's Shakespeare. Wrong. I would argue it is this guy, Chaucer. He is considered the father of the English language, and he wrote one of the most important books of all time, the Canterbury Tales. So the Canterbury Tales is about a group of people who are going on a long trip to a religious site. And this religious site happens to be in Canterbury, England, hence the Canterbury part. And in order to pass the time on this long trip, because remember, there's no cars, there's no train, there's no plane, it's just horses all the way to Canterbury, each pilgrim, the people on the trip, decided that they were going to tell a story, hence the tales part. So we have Canterbury, tales, the stories that these pilgrims are telling on their trip. And it begins with a very famous chapter called the General Prologue, and I'm going to read that in a second. But there is something important to know before we get there. The Canterbury Tales sounds weird. And I don't mean that the plot sounds weird or the characters sound weird. I mean the language itself sounds weird. And there's an extremely good reason for that. Today, we speak something that is known as modern English. But in Chaucer's time, they spoke what was known as Middle English. So picture yourself as a baby and how you talked as a baby. Do you still sound like that now? No, of course not. Your language evolved over time. And the English language did the same thing. So one of the most important changes is something that's known as the Great Vowel Shift. And it's pretty much exactly what it says on the packages. We started to say the vowels differently. So now that you know that, buckle up because we're about to hear it. And then we'll go line by line and talk about what they each mean because it's hard to understand. Okay, so first in Middle English. One that April with his shora sota, the drucht of March hath pierced to the rota, and bathed every vein in switch liquor, of which vertu engendred is the fleur. One Zephyrus eke with his sweeta breatha, in spirit hot in every holt in hetha, the tender cruppas and the younger sonna, have in his ram his half-course irona. And schmalen foul maken melodia, that schleppen all the nicht with open ear. So prieketh hem natuur en her courages, than longen folk to go on pilgrimages. And palmerers for to second stronger strondas, to ferne hallways couth in sondry londas. And specially from every shearer's enda, of England to Canterbury they wenda, the holy blissful martyr for to seeka, that hem hath holpen when that they were seeka. So now you totally get it, right? It makes perfect sense. You got it. We're done. Just kidding. I would never leave you like that. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of translation for each line so you get the idea of what we're talking about. So it starts, Juan that April with his shora sota, which means something like, when in April all the sweet showers fall. Pause for 1 second. Let me say this. The thing that gets lost in translation is the poetry. So this is not going to sound as artful or beautiful as it does in the Middle English. This is really just for comprehension and what we're talking about. So forgive me, I cannot do it as well as Chaucer. Okay, so when in April the sweet showers fall, the drucht of March hath pierced to the rota, which means the sweet showers fall and they pierce all the way down to the roots that March had left very dry in its drought. And bathed every vein in switch liquor, So the rain falls, pierces to the root, and it bathes everything in this sweet, sweet liquid of the rain of April. Of which vertu engendred is the flor, and the rain helps the flowers come alive. One Zephyris ake with his sueta breatha. So that is when the west wind blows with its sweet air. It's going to get a little warmer. The winter's over. It's springtime. And he exhales into every field and valley, onto the plants that are young, and the sun, which is just coming out of the winter, and the days are starting to get longer. Half in the ram, his half course irona. This one's a little tricky. It's talking about the ram in the zodiac. So it specifically means Aries, and that's how we can help place it right at the beginning of April, in case we didn't know that from the first line. And schmalen fowls maken melodia, and all the birds start singing. All the schmalen fowls, the little birds, maken melodia, they're singing. That schleppen all the nicht with open ear. And they've been sleeping with their eyes open, waiting for the springtime. So prieketh hem natuur in her courages. So give them courage, nature. Let their hearts want to engage. Dan longing folk to go on pilgrimages. So that the folks are going to want to go on these long religious trips. To farna hallways couth in sundry landas. To saints far away in strange, odd lands. And specially of every shire's enda, so from the ends of every shire, of Engelland to Canterbury they wenda. So from the ends of every shire of England, they're going to Canterbury. The holy blissful martyr for to seca, they're going to seek a saint. We know that because it's a pilgrimage. That hem hath holpen when that they were seca, who has helped them when they were sick. So we're talking about, it's the beginning of springtime. We're about to go on this trip. We're noticing all the beautiful signs of spring, the rain, the birds, the flowers, and the stage is set to go on our trip. So anyway, I will never concede to the Shakespeare Alliance. Chaucer's the guy. Canterbury Tales, read them some point in your life. I am here for all of your Middle English questions. And thank you for tuning into this edition of Natural Poetry Month. Bye, poets.